As you're aware, a key aim of the project was to assess how well productivity measures relate to economic performance measures through a series of case studies. And in this case, the case study is the Australian Northern Prawn Fishery. This is one of Australia's most valuable Commonwealth fisheries, with gross value of production averaging around about $108 million over the last 5 years. The Northern Prawn Fishery is a multi-species trawl fishery. The main species targeted are banana prawns, tiger prawns, and a number of other prawn species caught as byproducts, such as never prawns, king prawns, and others. Tiger prawns most of the byproduct species are exported, while banana prawns are mostly sold on the domestic market. The fishery is managed by individual transferable effort units, and these run through a combination of days fished and head rope length. There are currently 52 boats operating in the fishery. This is way down from 300 when the fishery initially started back sort of 40 years ago, and it's gradually decreased over time with a major buyback program being introduced in 2006-07, but reduced the fleet by about 50% at the time down to its current level. The fishery is also very data rich, apart from having a long history of logbook data and other data collected on the fishery. It also has had regular economic surveys undertaken since around the early 1990s, a bit more sporadically initially, but then sort of fairly regularly since then. We use DEA to estimate technical efficiency and capacity utilisation for the period 1999 to 2000 to 2019-2020, so a good 20 years of time series data, where we can look at how efficiency and capacity utilisation have changed over time. In terms of outputs, we considered 5 outputs. These were common banana prawns and red-legged banana prawns that are both caught in very different parts of the fishery. Tiger prawns, endeavour prawns, and also an aggregated other prawn species group. We looked at 3 inputs. These were days fished, engine power, and vessel length. Okay, we have a quick summary of results in the graph beside us here. From these, we can see that both technical efficiency and capacity utilisation increased following the buyback, quite substantially, as can be seen. That's the red vertical line on that figure. We see that capacity utilisation has remained high since the buyback, but had some fluctuations, whereas technical efficiency has fluctuated quite substantially since the buyback from year to year, mainly due to changes in stock levels. We compared these results with the economic survey results from the ABARES survey we mentioned previously at the individual vessel level. We looked at 3 economic measures, and these are illustrated beside us here: full equity profits, boat cash profits, and gross margins. These differ really through the treatment of different types of costs. Gross margins represent revenue less variable costs, such as fuel, crew, and marketing costs. Boat cash profits, gross margins less fixed cash costs, such as administration, wharfage, management fees, and other types of costs. Whereas full equity profits are boat cash profits less what we call non-cash capital costs. And these are things such as depreciation and what we call a normal return on investment for boat capital. We found that productivity measures explained as much as 90% of the variation in gross margin, decreasing to about 60% of the variation in full equity profits. So it's quite a fair amount of the variations explained by these productivity measures. Given that prices received are similar for all boats in the fishery, and they also face similar fuel prices and crew costs, then it's not surprising that the productivity measures correspond well to gross margins, because these were taking up costs from revenue. Fixed costs, however, are much more individually determined, and these are much less related to fishing activity and therefore productivity. So the greater the influence of cash and non-cash fixed costs, the more productivity measures diverge from profitability. However, we can be pretty confident that the results of the study suggest that productivity measures provide a reasonable proxy indicator for changes in economic performance of the fishery, at least in terms of short-term profitability measures such as gross margins. Okay, thank you.